Trouble, trouble, trouble's in the air. Trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. Oh my goodness gracious sakes. Alligator really was in trouble. It's been quite a long time ago now, but alligator was in trouble. You know why he was in trouble, don't you? Have you ever seen alligator skin? Maybe you think alligator skin is green. Let's see. Sometimes when I talk about alligators, I'll have one of my helpers wear this alligator hat. What color is his skin? Green! Alligators don't have green skin. They don't have green skin at all. Maybe sometimes when they're flopping around in the swamp, they get a little moss on them, a little algae on them. Maybe they look a little bit green. But if they go take a bath, they wouldn't be green at all. Let me show you. Used to be, folks would actually chop off poor old alligators' noggins and preserve them and sell them to people at roadside stands down in Florida. And somehow or another, we here at Arrowhead got a hold of a couple of these things. And I kind of feel sorry for this old alligator. He must have been a good-sized alligator, wasn't he? He was a good-sized alligator. His head here, it's at least a foot long, so I imagine he was, 6, 7, or 8 feet long anyway, wasn't he? Look at those teeth. Woo, has he got teeth. He's got teeth, and that big old mouth with a one-way bite. But look at his skin. It's not green, it's black. It's black. I'll show you even better. Look at this. This is a piece of alligator skin that's been polished and shined up. Ooh, 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 ooh. Right after an alligator gets out of the car wash, I guess maybe this would be what he looked like. He's all shined up. Isn't that pretty? Ooh, that is pretty skin. Think of all the things you could do with skin like that. That kind of hide, that tough leather made out of alligator skin is pretty. You know what happened, don't you? It might have been your mama or your grandmama maybe, way back yonder somehow. Her husband maybe was down around the Okefenokee swamp somewhere, and he came home with an alligator he had shot. And he skinned that thing up, and tacked his hide up on the barn, and tanned it and cleaned it. And when that hide got ready, he brought it in. His wife saw that. She said, "Ooh, isn't that pretty? Wouldn't that make a nice pair of shoes for me?" Why, if I wore a pair of shoes like that in church on Sunday morning, why, everybody would look at my shoes and say, "Aren't they pretty?" And sure enough, he did. He made her a pair of shoes out of that pretty alligator skin. And pretty soon, all the other ladies at the church, they said, "Oh, I like those shoes. I want me some shoes like that." And doggone if her husband didn't go into the business. And pretty soon he is making shoes for all the ladies. And after a while, he got to looking at that skin. He had some leftover long strips and all. He thought, shoot, I think I'll make me a belt out of that. Yeah, wouldn't that make a pretty belt? He made himself an alligator skin belt. And then he said, well, now, wouldn't that make a nice cap for me? I think I'll make me a cap out of that. And he did. He loved to ride his motorcycle, so he thought, well, that would make a great motorcycle jacket for me to wear around. Think how pretty it'd be. And pretty soon, everybody was wanting those alligator skin things. Men had alligator skin cowboy boots. Everybody wanted some alligator skin. Folks were going out hunting those alligators and hunting those alligators and hunting those alligators and hunting those alligators and hunting those alligators until the alligators almost went. Do you know the word for it, don't you? They almost went extinct. They did. They almost went extinct. That means they were almost all gone. They were. And somebody said, well, they're mighty big and they're kind of scary, but I don't want them all to be gone. So they got busy and they passed some laws and said, okay, now you hunters, you can hunt alligators, but you can only take so many a year. Now, y'all are used to that, aren't you? Some of you have daddies or mamas that hunt deer or go fishing. You know that there are limits, aren't there? You're only allowed to catch so many certain kinds of fish at certain times, and only so many deer that you can harvest in a year, right? And so we made up rules for the alligators. And you know what happened, don't you? Those alligators started coming back because the babies started living longer. There were more mamas and daddies, and pretty soon we had alligators again in big numbers. Now you can go down to South Georgia or South Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana and all over Florida, and you can find millions of alligators because we passed some laws so that their skin wouldn't get them in trouble and so that they would not go extinct. You're right. Well, you know, Joel Chandler Harris and some other storytellers like Ed Stivender and David Holt, some of those fellas, they talk about these guys and they tell me that way back yonder, long time ago, before the Europeans came to America, way back then, they say that the animals were different than they are today. Well, for one thing, they could talk to each other, and they could talk to people, and people could talk to them. But there was something else. Some of those animals looked different back in those days. Take old Possum. Possum had a big old fluffy tail instead of a naked one like he's got now. And, well, take Gator. Gator was different back then. According to those folks, way, way, way back yonder, this is just a story. Way, way, way back yonder, the alligator didn't have that black, shiny, scaly, dry skin that he's got nowadays. They say back then, his skin was more like, a frog or a salamander. Had that smooth, moist skin. Kind of like when your mama goes to Bath and Body Works and she comes back with all those oils and creams, you know, and she gets her skin to looking so pretty and moist and she smells good. You can hear her, you can smell her coming way, way off. Oh yeah, that's kind of like those alligators were. And instead of being black, their skin was gold colored, just a bright yellow. It was. They were still big, and they still had those big old teeth like that head back over there. They had big old teeth. They had that big old one-way bite, right? They had that one-way bite. They were big and scary, but they had that pretty yellow, smooth, moist skin instead of the black skin. How about that? They sure did. They weren't the only animal that was different. I already told you about the possum. The rabbits were different too. Bunny, you know what a rabbit's got now. It doesn't have much of a tail at all. Just a little fluff of fur back there is all it's got left of its tail. Back in those days, way, way, way back there when the alligator skin was yellow and smooth, back in those days, rabbit was so proud of his tail. Woo! His tail was big and fluffy and shaped like a gigantic question mark. Ooh, Rabbit was so proud of his tail. He'd just go prancing around that swamp down there where he lived, you know. He'd just hop around and his tail would wave up behind him. He thought it was so pretty. Yeah. Sometimes he would pull that tail around in front of him and he'd just brush on that tail so it'd be nice and pretty and fluffy. Sometimes he'd even braid a little bit of that tail, you know. He thought that looked pretty. And sometimes he'd tie little ribbons in his tail. He thought his tail was the prettiest thing in the world. Oh, he'd just go hopping around. I'm so pretty. I'm so pretty. Woo! One day, something happened though. Rabbit went hopping around that swamp and he got a little too close to the king of the gators. Didn't even see him. How he could have missed him, I don't know. He was laying up there on the bank all bright and yellow. But Rabbit was so full of his own thoughts, thinking about how pretty he was, that he got too close to that alligator. And Gator bumped right into him. And I don't know which one was most surprised. Both of their eyes got big as they could be. And that bunny rabbit, he hopped up and quick flipped around. When he flipped around, he slapped that gator right in the face with that great big old tail. That gator's eyes got big. He opened up his big old mouth, got ready to chomp, and just as he was about to chomp on that rabbit hopped away. And he got away. The rabbit got away. But his tail didn't. He went hopping on his mama, that gator got my pretty tail. To this day, rabbits just got that little tiny fluff of fur back there. Isn't that something? And you can imagine how mad it made him. Ooh, he was so mad. He started singing his trouble song. He said, trouble, trouble, trouble in the air. Trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. Oh, that mean old gator got my tail. Oh, I'd like to get him back. He's so dumb. Them gators are dumb. I never heard of one going to school. And you know that's the truth. Gators don't go to school. They don't have, well, I know y'all aren't going to school either right now, but that's different. You know, I mean, most of the time you go to school, and this is all going to be over after a while. You'll get back to school, and you'll be learning from those good teachers you had. The gators didn't have that. There was no school for gators. And they were the biggest things around. And lazy, all those gators had to do is lay all around the swamp there. They'd only needed to eat every now and then some little rabbit or some little tiny baby deer or some little tiny possum would come hopping around, sliding around, running around too close. That gator just opened up his big old mouth and swat down on that animal and he'd swallow it. And then just loll there while he digested that poor little old animal. And that's how he lived. He didn't really need to go to school. But he is ignorant. He is ignorant. And that's what Rabbit got to thinking about. You know, that gator doesn't go to school. He probably doesn't even know what trouble is. I'll bet he doesn't. I'll bet he doesn't even know what trouble is. And that's when Rabbit changed his tune. Well, he didn't exactly change his tune. He changed the beat. And he put a smile on his face. Now, have y'all ever noticed that? I don't care how bad things get. If you can put a smile on your face, you look prettier. Take this 73-year-old guy here. I'll go around like this. Oh, I'm stuck at home, can't do anything. Oh, I look ugly. But put me a nice smile on my face and I'm a right handsome fella. Well, more handsome anyway, don't you agree? And that's the way it was with that rabbit too. So that rabbit changed the beat of his song. He didn't change the tune, he changed the beat. And he changed his face. Got a big old smile and started singing. Trouble. He's still singing about trouble. Trouble, trouble, trouble in the air. Woo! Trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. Yeah! Trouble, trouble, trouble in the air. Woo! Trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. Yeah! Oh, he started singing that song around home, and pretty soon, some of the other rabbits heard it. They'd start singing it too. They went around, they liked that song. And pretty soon, why, some of their neighbors there, the little chipmunks, heard it. Oh, y'all know about the chipmunks, don't you? Yeah, they formed a group, yeah. There was Alvin and Theodore and Simon, and they got together and they recorded it. They did. They recorded it and they started singing that, and it got on the radio and everything and made the top 10. Trouble, trouble, trouble's in the air. Woo! Trouble, oh, trouble everywhere. Yeah! Whoo! And other people heard it. Why? All the animals heard it. Why, the foxes were singing it, and the deer were singing it, and the bear were singing it, and the beavers were singing it. Everybody, why, even the insects were singing it. Why, there was a group of 4 beetles over here, and they decided to sing it. And they covered it too. Yeah, they did. They did. They had guitars and drums, and they put even more of a beat to it. And they'd sing it like this. Trouble, oh, trouble, trouble's in the air. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Trouble, oh, trouble everywhere. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I tell you what, they took it all the way to #1. It was all over the radio. Everybody was listening to it. The whole swamp was rocking to it. And you know who eventually heard it? It was the king of the Gators. The king of the Gators heard it. He liked it too. He started singing, trouble, trouble, trouble in the air. Yeah, trouble. He had little short arms, you know. Yeah, trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. Yeah. He liked it too. One day, Rabbit was out hopping around the swamp, and he got a little close again. And Gator saw him coming. He said, "Oh, Rabbit, I love that song you made up. That's a great song." Rabbit said, "You mean my song about trouble?" He said, "Yeah, that trouble sounds like fun. Woo, I'd like to meet that trouble." Rabbit said, "Oh, you would? You'd like to meet trouble, would you?" He said, "I sure would." Rabbit said, "I tell you what, Gator, I'm going to bring trouble to meet you tomorrow morning." Gator said, "You do for that for me, even after I chopped off your tail?" He said, "I sure would. Why, I'd be glad to. I'll bring trouble by first thing in the morning." And Gator said, "Well, thanks a lot, Rabbit." And Rabbit went off hopping and singing trouble, trouble. And Gator went back to the swamp there, to his nest by the swamp. Trouble, trouble. And they both crawled into their nest that night and slept and dreamed. And the next morning, when the sun was coming up over the gum trees over in the east there, you know, they shined down on Gator. He opened up one eye. He opened up the other eye. He yawned and he stretched. And he climbed out of his nest and he, "Oh, today's the day trouble's coming." So he stood up on a log and he called out to all his gator friends. He said, "Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down? Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down?" Yeah. Well, that woke up the mama alligators. They sleep more lightly. And all those mama alligators, you mama alligators out there that listening, you can stand up too. Yeah. And they sang in their sweet little mama alligator voices. They sang, and they got to open up their big old mouths, right? They'd open up their mouths and they sang, "Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down? Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down?" And when they did that, that woke up the daddy alligators. All you boys stand up and let's sing the daddy alligators on, folks. Now for this, you got to put on your gruff old daddy alligator voices. Open up those big old mouths. Ready? Here we go. Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down? Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down? And when the daddy sang like that, that woke up all the little baby alligators. The little baby alligators, they woke up. They opened up their big old mouths and they started singing, "Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down? Alligators, gather round. We're gonna meet trouble. Won't you come on down?" Yeah. And they were all awake then. And it was about that time. Gator said, "Y'all follow me. Let's go out here in this field next to the swamp and get ready to meet trouble." And so he led them all out into that dry field. Oh, the grass was tall, and it hadn't rained in weeks. And that grass was tall and dry. They slithered through that grass out to the middle, a little rise there in the middle of all that grass. And they looked around, and sure enough, it wasn't long before there came Rabbit hopping along. And they saw him in the distance there. And Gator said, "Oh, morning, Rabbit." Rabbit said, "Morning, Gator. Did you bring trouble?" "I sure did. I'm going to send him right on out." Gator says, "Oh, boy." And that's when, well, now, boys and girls, we're to a serious moment in this story right now. I need you to listen carefully. This is when Rabbit did something he should not have done. And I want you all to raise your right hands right now. Your right hand now. Right hand, right? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise that I will never do what Rabbit did. Here's what Rabbit did. Rabbit reached into his backpack and he pulled out a great big old box of kitchen matches. And he took out a match and he struck it on the side of that box, and he leaned over and set some of that grass on fire. And then he went hopping around that field, and every little while he'd open that box up, get another match out, and strike it and set the grass afire again. And he hopped around, setting fires, 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 till he had gone all the way around that field. And the fire was rising up in the distance around those alligators. And that king of the gators, he stood up right in the middle of all those alligators. He said, my. Trouble sure is rosy. Trouble must be warm and cozy." And that fire got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And he looked around and he said, my. Trouble sure is hot. Trouble's hot like the sun on a big old rock. And that fire got bigger and bigger and closer and closer. And the king of the gators said, my, trouble's stinging me. Trouble stings like a sting in me. Oh, ouch, ouch. Follow me, gators. And he started going right through that burning grass, slithering down toward that creek and the swamp there. And all the mamas, they looked around, "Where are the babies? Come on, babies, y'all get underneath us." And the babies kind of slithered down underneath their mamas and daddies. And they went slithering off through that fire. Ooh-choo, chow-chow, ooh-choo, chow-chow, ooh-choo, chow-chow, ooh-choo, chow-chow. Sploosh, they splashed right into the swamp. And when they did, it sounded like, well, can you make the S sound? It sounded like the S sound. It went sss. Louder. Sss. That's how it sounded. And then those gators all said, "Ooh." Repeat after me. "Ooh. Ah. That feels better." Yeah, they did. And they stood up and they said, "Oh my goodness, look at us." And they looked at each other. And after being in that fire, why, their skin looked different. It was dry and scaly and charred a beautiful, solid, shiny black. "Look at us, aren't we pretty?" they said. And about that time, the babies started crawling out from underneath their mamas and their daddies. And all those mamas and daddies' eyes got big. Look at the babies. Because the babies had been underneath their mamas and daddies. And underneath their mamas and daddies, why, they'd been partly protected. Oh, they still got burned, but not quite so badly. So their skin was black too, but not completely. Now, y'all need to be real quiet for this part. Let me show you what they look like. Oh, he's a little bit upset. Here he is. Be still, fella. Be still, Beauregard. Oh, you're going to hiss at me? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Those folks out there are our friends. They're our friends. Get still. Those folks out there are our friends. Yeah. This is the little alligator. For those of you that have been reading that, you're going to flip around here and bite my finger if I'm not careful. Yeah, those fellas, this fella's probably a little bit bigger than that little one that Nick caught in the book, The Lion's Paw, that I've been reading to you all. Some of you have been reading it maybe. If you haven't, you ought to go play those videos too. But this is probably a little bit bigger than the one that, that Nick caught, the little one that he caught. But you can see that the baby alligators still had some of that yellow on them. They were yellow and black. Isn't that something? Oh, what a wonderful critter he is. Well, that's the silly, silly story. And I mostly got it from David Holt's version. So apologies to David, I kind of stole your song, but it is in your book called Ready to Tell Tales. And I think that book gives us permission to tell it. I hope so, because I've been telling it for 7 years to the children out here at Arrowhead. So I hope you enjoy that silly story. Those are called creation stories or origin stories, or I like to call them how come stories. This one is, how come a baby alligator is yellow and black and the grown-up alligators are solid black? Well, that kind of explains that, doesn't it? Well, y'all say bye to Beauregard here. See his little webbed foot there? Oh, that's a wonderful adaptation, help him swim. And he's got that dry, scaly skin. You see all those scales on him there? Yeah, dry. He's going to grow about a foot a year until he gets, 6 years old or so, and then he'll grow much more slowly. The biggest alligator that we've ever found, the biggest American alligator, was 19 feet long. Now, the floor of this room has those 1-foot tiles on it, so if you were here, we'd count off 19 of these and let a kid stand on each end so you could see how big it is. But that's a big old alligator, a lot bigger than this fella. These fellas will probably go back to the swamp this summer, and we'll have some more next fall. The Department of Natural Resources folks will bring us some newly hatched alligators for us to show to the kids. Well, I wish you could be here at Arrowhead and see all the stuff we have here, but I hope you've enjoyed this silly, silly origin story or how come story about the alligator. From David Holt, Joel Chandler Harris, and Terrell Shaw. Bye-bye.